My name is Shawn, and this is my video out. So I'm actually born and raised here in New York. Born in Brooklyn, grew up all over Long Island, went to college in Buffalo. I have a sister, I lived with my parents. We were in a very suburban neighborhood, nothing crazy or anything like that, but I was pretty fortunate growing up. I had no exposure to the LGBTQIA+ community growing up, no one in my town. I remember in high school, this one girl came out, and she came out as lesbian, and that was like the big thing in the town because it was as if she was our first gay person we had. And now looking back, there were so many, but we just didn't have that exposure. It was a long journey for me. Looking back, I know there are so many moments. I remember being attracted to the Blue Power Ranger. I remember watching Survivor with my dad and thinking some of the contestants were attractive. So there are moments where now I'm realizing like, oh, that's because I'm gay, but I didn't realize it in the moment. I didn't understand why I had these feelings. I think in college was really when I started accepting myself and realizing I am definitely not straight. I thought I was bi for a minute. Definitely not bi. I'm just fully gay and fully me. So the first person I told is me. So I was out to the community for a few years before I like really came out. I don't even like the word coming out. I think because I don't feel that anyone should have to come out. It's more just letting people in. Ideally, I would have just shown up to dinner one day with a boyfriend and as if everything was completely normal. And hopefully that happens soon, but I came out to members of the community. I was going on dates, I had boyfriends for a few years, and then I came out first to my sister. She's always, since I've been little, been the person who I tell everything first, good or bad. My parents actually didn't even think I would speak when I was like 1 and 2. They were concerned because I would only whisper to her and only speak to her and not my parents. So they thought that I had a problem, but it's just because I've always spoken to her. So I was with her, we were just having dinner, like takeout in her apartment, hanging out, and I was almost ready to leave, and then I was like, wait, I came here to come out. She was straightening her hair when I decided to be like, by the way, I've been dating someone for a few months, his name is John. And I shouldn't have done it when she was straightening her hair because she kind of paused for a second, and I think she burned a little bit of her hair. But then right away she was like, thank you for telling me. She was so supportive, so she was crying, like she was so happy, and just couldn't wait to like live my life with me. I lucked out. In all the people I personally told, I would receive very positive feedback, and everyone was so supportive. I was definitely afraid, and that's why I think it took me a long time to come out to certain people. But there were people in my life who I haven't verbally said anything, but there are people who the friendships have ended. There's a few people I went to college with. We were in a fraternity together. We were all, I thought, friends in college, and I even saw a few of them the other month at a bar, and they wouldn't even acknowledge my presence in the bar. We were all with the same group of friends. We all met together, and they wouldn't even look in my direction. So there are people who just, whether it's a lack of education, I don't know, that they won't accept it, but for the most part, I've been fortunate. So all the haters, to all those who just don't understand what it's like to truly live as yourself, I say just try to learn. Try to open yourselves up. You may not fully understand it. You may not fully support it. And it's your right to believe what you want to believe. But I think it's also your right to make sure you give it an effort and make sure you at least try to learn and try to open yourselves up instead of just right away throwing people aside and be like, oh, they're gay, that's gross, or I can't associate with that. Why don't you instead ask them about what it's like for them, or go on a website, read a book. If people still have books, I don't know. But it's definitely something worth looking into. To everyone who has been there for me, it's really just a thank you. I have actually every single text I got like screenshotted on my phone from when I did come out, because it just means the world to hear that acceptance. So even if you may not support the community, you may not believe in it, even if like I'm your only gay friend, just knowing that you still at least accept me for me, it means a lot. Today, I think the hardest thing for our community, the LGBTQIA+ community, is really that battle between, there are so many people in our community who are so comfortable and so fortunate, people who are living, whether it's in New York City, San Francisco, some of these like more ideal cities for our community. And I fear that people almost forget that there's still so much work to be done. And while we have so many threats externally, I think the biggest threat is internally, of making sure that we continue to fight for equality across the board. Whether it is just growing our acceptance, that there's still so many countries who believe it's a crime to be gay, or countries who you can't marry the person you love. There is still so much going on with our trans community. And even with the lesbian, gay, and bisexual community, there's still so much visibility that needs to be there. Whether it's affirmation, whether it's pronouns, you name it, we need to continue to grow that. And we're only going to get there if our community educates the hetero community. The thing that gives me the most hope, honestly, is seeing the growth. Right now, I serve as the partnerships manager for NYC Pride. And we are so fortunate to have over 150 groups who want to partner with us, whether it's a large corporation or a local restaurant, small nonprofit. And I feel that even 5 years ago, like 5, 10, 15 years ago, we would be begging some of these people to even let us have a meeting to get our foot in the door. And now they're coming to us. And they want to not only have a diversity and inclusion group, employee engagement group, march and participate in the march, or just have a rainbow flag at their office. There was a group in New Jersey who emailed us saying they were so proud that they finally were able to hang a rainbow flag this month, and that they were fighting for years with their bosses to be able to do that. So seeing these baby steps and seeing all this growth is giving me the hope that it might be taking longer than we want or that it deserves, but it's happening. I would say my favorite part about being me is actually just being me. I spent so many years struggling with that and not knowing who I am. It's funny, I had one of my closest friends and mentors growing up. She said to me, "Be yourself, the rest will fall into place." And she knew I was gay before I knew I was gay. Unfortunately, she passed away before I even got to come out. But I know she knew. She, I think, was trying to tell me that I was gay almost. And it took a long time. It took many years for me to realize that the happiness will come, the friends will come, the partner will come, the jobs, the apartments, all those little things, all those tangible things in your life will come, but only if you're truly yourself. And you're going to be depressed, and you're going to have anxiety, and you're going to isolate yourself, which are things that I've done, if you don't just let everything happen. So being myself is my favorite part about me right now. If you didn't know, this is the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, and it is the very first time that WorldPride is being hosted in the United States. And of course, obviously, the fact that it's in New York is just monumental. And it means so much. The fact that it's the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising means that 50 years ago, a group of people sparked a movement literally 200 feet from where we're sitting right now. And no one knew what would come from that movement. If it would continue, no one knew that 1 year later that a march would start. No one knew that acceptance would slowly be growing. No one knew that you fast forward and President Obama made it legal for us to marry the people we wanted to marry. And it means so much that we can not only celebrate their efforts, but continue their fight. By using the platform of WorldPride, I think we're giving this platform to shed so much light on the work that everyone has done before us, but also shed the light on what needs to still be done. We are fortunate enough to be able to do that. WorldPride is essentially like the Olympics for our community. So every 2 years, WorldPride comes to another city, and the fact that it's here for this anniversary, the international community, the international LGBTQIA plus community is watching us, and we're creating these events, these million moments of pride to really highlight that. And even just the other night, protesting for trans rights, so we're still using this platform to fight for what is needed, but still celebrate and commemorate everything we've done. So the ideal end game is that we will be able to rename our march from a march to a parade. It is very commonly referred to as a pride parade, but for us it's a pride march. We will continue to march for our equality and our rights while still celebrating who we are and everything we've done, but we still have so much work to be done. So the end game, at least for me and for our team here, is that it can be a parade, and it could be purely a celebration, and we don't have to worry about who's in office. We don't have to worry about what countries we can travel to or who believes in us. We know we have the equality, we know we have acceptance, and we can just live our true selves.